Hi, thanks for joining me. I'm Carla with The Race to Walk, and today I'm going to share with you the 5 all-time great love stories in literature that I actually hate. So if you're interested in hearing about which sacred cows I'm going to butcher today, listen in. But before we get started, a little bit about this channel. Here we share good thoughts about good words, and on Tuesdays I publish videos about books, and on Fridays I host a live Bible study on Instagram at Race to Walk, and then I upload that here later to YouTube. So if you are interested in any of those things, be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to hit the bell for notifications so you can get updates on new videos. Before we get started, when I was thinking about the types of things I wanted to publish, going into Valentine's Day, I thought maybe I should do, top 5 love stories. So I started doing a search about what other people thought were really good love stories, and some of them really, really shocked me. So I am going to do my top 5 love stories in literature, but not today. Based on some of those things that I found, I am first doing a video on the favorite love stories in literature that I can't stand and that I don't think are good. So here's the thing. Ever since we started an Unexpected Journal, and since I've started publishing some things, I've been researching about, different things about publishing. So I read what other writers have to say, what types of things they recommend to promote, and sometimes they share their sales, and so when they do, I look at, okay, well, what is it that they specifically are doing to get those results? What I found is some of those very successful writers are good writers. They have great books. Some of them are not. Some of them, when I would download to read to see what type of thing they wrote, there's so much out there that when I read it, I can literally feel my soul shrivel. It's not even so much about the writing as it is the content and the ideology beneath it. I can just feel it. It's just not edifying. It's not building up. It's depressing sometimes, even though it's supposed to be, some of these are supposed to be romances. I'm just going to tell you why I don't like some of these really popular romances. And I'm going to read a little bit from George MacDonald, A Dish of Warts. Now, this is one I bought off of Amazon. I do not recommend this edition. This is the thing about George MacDonald. I mentioned him before in a couple of videos. All of his writing is out of copyright. So what you'll find is people who just will grab a file off of Gutenberg, and then they'll just slap it up on direct to print and publish it. That is what this is. We read this in one of our apologetics, one of our classes for the apologetics program. I always like to have a physical copy so I can make notes, and it's easier to write and reference. That's what happened here. It has super small margins, which I hate. It doesn't even break it up into chapters. I literally had to do a table of contents for myself, and that's why I have these tabs breaking it up in chapters. It's horribly formatted. It's like they didn't know how to create sections. So anyway, just an FYI, whenever you buy anything by George MacDonald, be careful about the edition that you get, because you might run into something like this. Anyway. So this is actually a quote that I thought C.S. Lewis had said, and Lewis quotes MacDonald a lot, so I might have heard Lewis quote him somewhere, but this is about what books are and how important it is to read good books. So he writes, in books we not only have a store of all results of the imagination, but in them, as in her workshop, we may behold her embodying before our very eyes. In the music of speech, in the wonder of words, tell her work like a golden dish set with shining jewels and adorned by the hands of cunning workmen stands finished before us. In this kind, then, the best must be set before the learner, that he may eat and not be satisfied. For the finest products of the imagination are of the best nourishment for the beginnings of that imagination. And the mind of the teacher must mediate between the work of art and the mind of the pupil, bringing them together in the vital contact of intelligence, directing the observation to the lines of expression, the points of force, and helping the mind to repose upon the whole, so that no separable beauties shall lead to the neglect of the scope, that is, the shape or form complete. And he must ever seek to show excellence rather than talk about it, giving the thing itself, that it may grow into the mind, and not a eulogy of his own upon the thing, isolating the point worthy of remark rather than making many remarks upon the point. I'm going to skip down a little bit further. Thus doing, he shall perform the true office of friendship. He will introduce his pupil into the society which he himself prizes most, surrounding him with the genial presence of the high-minded, that this good company may work its own kind in him who frequents it. But he will likewise seek to turn him aside from such company, whether of books or of men, as might tend to lower his reverence, his choice, or his standard. He will therefore discourage indiscriminate reading, and that worse than waste which consists in skimming the books of a circulating library. He knows that if a book is worth reading at all, it is worth reading well, and that if it is not worth reading, it is only to the most accomplished reader that it can be worth skimming. He will seek to make him discern not merely between the good and the evil, but between the good and the not so good. And this not for the sake of sharpening the intellect, still less generating that self-satisfaction which is the closest attendant upon criticism, but for the sake of choosing the best path and the best companions upon it. Okay, and that is, I think, one of the things that we always need to be looking out for. If we're going to be spending our time, filling our minds with thoughts, from these books, then what are those best companions? So I'm just going to give you my philosophy about this. I look at this these books that I chose aren't so much about like whether the book as a whole is bad. It's considering the romance or the love story in it, because some of them are no love story at all. I'm sorry, they're not. And I look at it, I think, okay, if my friend was in a situation like that, would I be saying something to him about him? Because most of these, I would. So here's the thing. I know this one's probably going to shock you. First one that I really don't like is Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare. I know. I just don't like it as a love story. I think that the whole story itself is a better illustration of the problems of evil, the futility of, the issues of, vengeance. I don't like it as a love story. I think Romeo is, Romeo is in love with Rosalind. He goes to a ball and he sees Juliet and falls in love with her, and he's fickle. And then, there's a lot of, overreacting and drama, and yes, I realize this is a play and it's a tragedy, and so you're going to have drama, but just as a whole, I just don't like the story. If Romeo had waited 5 minutes, he would have realized that Juliet wasn't actually dead. They would have had their happily ever after if he hadn't been so impetuous. So this to me is very similar to Antigone by Sophocles. I hate that one too. Hate it. I can't remember if I read it in sophomore, junior English in high school. We had this huge debate on it. And my teacher was like, you need to suspend disbelief. I'm thinking, you know what? I just can't. This just makes no sense to me. I just don't understand the whole melodrama, kill yourself, especially with Antigone. She, persevered through so much, and then it's she gets to the end, she just kills herself right away. I just don't like it. So I just don't like Romeo and Juliet. I don't for my girl, I have teenage girls, and I tell them, we don't do drama. We don't, especially over boys. We just don't do drama. So anyway, the second one that I do not like, that I cannot believe some people think is a love story or romance, is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. Now this is a great book for a lot of reasons, not as a love story. So it was published in 1878. It's very long. It's usually about 800 pages, and it was set in Imperial Russia. It gives a very good snapshot of life at the time, and it shows human frailties and how, these human failings can affect so many people. The character of the story, Anna Karenina, she falls in love with, she's married, she falls in love with someone else, she goes off with him, and to me, when looking at the overall arc of the story of Anna, what to me it says, it illustrates, is the wages of sin is death. I mean, it's a story about, it's a love story about two very shallow and very self-absorbed people. I mean, it's not a love story. You could consider it a tragedy maybe. It's not this great love. I mean, it's very kind of a sickening and perverted sort of love, because those two people are so stunted, spiritually and emotionally. I just don't like it. I don't like it. It's not a love story. It's not. The third one that I cannot stand is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. So when I was younger, probably preteens or teens, I got this list of, I think it was something like 100 books you should read before you die. These are these great books. And I remember reading this book, and I just was like, it literally one of those soul shriveling sort of reading experiences. And I'm thinking, but it's like everybody says it's great. And so I should like it. Well, I don't. And let me tell you, there's nothing redeeming really about the main character, Heathcliff, in this at all, ever. He doesn't ever learn from any of his experiences. He's manipulative. He's abusive. I mean, really, there's this whole really sort of sickening thing in romance novels about, bullying or this, I don't know, but it kind of like stems from this. It's kind of like the root of it. I mean, this is that sort of same sort of idea. It's not this great love. It's a very sickening, stalkerish obsession. But I don't understand. And then I started researching it a little more, and I guess it was really panned when it first came out. And one of the earlier reviewers said, I can't believe that the writer didn't commit suicide 12 chapters in. Yeah, it's not a good book. I'll link to this in the description box, but there's this article that I came across, same sort of feeling, and that writer called Wuthering Heights a hot mess. I mean, it's not a love story. You know what? If one of my friends was in this kind of situation, we'd be having an intervention. There's no way. Okay. The next one that I really don't like, and this is another one I just don't understand why anyone would consider this a romance or a love story. It's Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert, and it was published in 1856. Now, this is a very, a lot of people say that the prose is great and that it was the first real, introduced literary realism. I don't know. Again, it's about a very narcissistic woman who, she marries a very faithful man. She has affairs on him all over the place. She puts them into debt, ruins them. And then when her lovers abandon her, she commits suicide. And he's, still doesn't know this. And then he goes and he discovers the letters, and then he dies. And it's just the end part of it, there is kind of a little bit of immorality in there, and that even their daughter ends up badly. And so it's kind of like the evil don't prosper, that sort of moral to it. But I don't know what anybody would think that this is romantic. I mean, this is just someone who is like a complete mess. I mean, to me, it's very misogynistic. I mean, very misogynistic. Like, women can't be trusted, and yeah. Totally just, again, not a romance novel. I don't even like the novel. I've noticed about a lot of French novels that are supposed to be really amazing, they're always really depressing to me. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed that about movies too? Like, French movies are really depressing. They just kind of bring you down. Anyway, don't like it. Don't recommend it. Okay, my fifth book is... Now, this one I don't dislike as much. I just don't think it's that great of a love story. Gone with the Wind, written in 1936 by Margaret Mitchell. And I'm sure everyone, well, maybe not everybody anymore, but, there's the epic movie with Clark Gable in it, and so I think people are familiar with that. I actually have read the book, and I don't dislike the book as a whole. I just don't like the love story in it. Listen to this. This is the description that I think it was like Oprah's Book Club gave. The Southern Belle fights for the love of her life and for the preservation of her family's plantation in the midst of the Civil War and the Reconstruction era. Okay, yeah, the love of her life happened to be married to her best friend. Again, another mess. She does have, at least with Scarlett O'Hara, she does have some growth there. Again, I don't really like it as a love story. It just, the whole thing bothered me, the whole time. Like, she's in love with Ashley, who is married to Melanie, who is so faithful to Scarlett, and she doesn't seem to ever even have any, guilt or compunction about it. Again, very, very, very self-absorbed, which I guess some people maybe like that. I don't know. But is this sort, of person, this heroine, what George MacDonald would consider a good companion? I don't think so. Anyway, I'm not saying the book as a whole is bad. I just don't think as a love story, I just don't think it's a good one. I think it shows kind of the mess that people can get in when they're that, self-absorbed and lack character and integrity. I don't know. I just don't think it's a great love story. So anyway, and I don't know whoever wrote this synopsis. I don't know who they are considering the love of her life. Are they considering it to be Ashley or Rhett? Because in the end, she kind of comes to her senses, but then she's been so flip-floppy the whole time, you really don't know. Even like with everything that she went through, it didn't really even seem like it impacted her all that much. So again, I suppose there could be people like that. I just not my favorite. Certainly not a favorite love story. Those are my 5. Let me know what you think. And if you agree or disagree, love to hear about it. But thanks for joining me. And next week, I'm going to be publishing a video on 5 love stories in literature that I do actually love. So see you next time.